Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Man Bites Film, of course, with our special guest.
John from Narcotic Cassarole.
And everybody knows my name is Luis, and today we're going to be reviewing Ghostbusters.
Two. You just couldn't say the rest of it, could you?
No. Hey, I wanted you to intercede with it. It worked out perfectly.
Instincts are perfect. Okay. Yeah. A lot has been said about the original Ghostbusters, and truly, it is still, to this day, in my opinion, one of the most original, one of the most funniest, most infinitely quotable movies ever made.
Yeah.
And, of course, with expectations that high, when the sequel was going to inevitably come out, were we really that surprised that we weren't going to be as...
I thought it wasn't going to be as good. When I watched the first one, obviously this was maybe 4 or 5 years later after it released, but I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to watch the next one. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to watch the next one. When I went back as an adult to watch it, I'm like, all right, your child expectations are one thing, and you're like, all right, this is the epitome of my childhood. Mm-hmm. It was right in the epicenter of everything that was going on. But do I really remember it right? I went back, rewatched 1 and 2. They still hold up so well.
There's a part of me. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Ghostbusters. I've said this to Ernie Hudson when I met him at a con. Dan Aykroyd when I was buying his vodka. I said to both of them, I was like, Ghostbusters was my awakening. I was born on December the 12th, 1981, but truly I came to life when I went to go see Ghostbusters in the theater when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The movie had everything.
Yeah.
It had great comedy. It was scary as hell. There were scenes when I was a kid I could not watch.
Yeah.
I had to do the behind the sofa thing because it freaked me out.
Yeah.
And Ghostbusters 2, when I saw that in the theater, did the exact same thing. The scene when the whatever it was in the slime trying to reach up and grab Reid, the bathtub scene.
Yep.
Where it was that was the one that freaked me right there. That's the scene
really?
when I was a younger I couldn't watch.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd never seen it. I had watched at that point. I already seen Nightmare on Elm Street.
Parents actually, they were my parents, to their credit, were one of the few parents that actually were being disciplinarian about what I should see at that age. I mean, I was in first grade at the time, so
yeah,
I see where they're coming from. I mean, so the time and a place for everything.
But my dad introduced me to horror movies when I was young, so it was like that was like, oh, this is so cool.
It was a matter of time, but you know what? To my parents' credit, they caved a little earlier. I mean, when it came to taking me to go see R-rated films, they took me. First R-rated film I went to go see was Hard Target.
All right.
Not the first one.
That's a good one to start with.
Not the first one I saw. Not the first one I saw, but the first one I went to that my mom took me to the theater to go see.
Okay.
Hard Target. So, off topic here, but nevertheless, so my horror sensibilities were a little bit more delicate because I'd never been exposed to hardcore horror.
Yeah.
And the one great thing about Ghostbusters is that it was always unflinchingly determined to still be scary in lieu of the fact that it is still very funny.
Still comedy, yeah.
But Ghostbusters 2, even after it came out on video, parents bought it, watched it like crazy. I still loved it just as much as I loved the first one, and I binged both back to back. And then, of course, you had the cartoon series that was coming out.
The cartoon series was phenomenal. The real Ghostbusters. Yeah,
the real Ghostbusters is amazing. What isn't that? You mean that's not the one with the gorilla? Oh, God.
No.
The less said about that, the better.
That's why the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that is actually why it's called the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
but But the film got a really bad rap, and a lot of hardcore Ghostbusters fans were attacking it. Now, some points of admission, it does, for all intents and purposes, follow the same story beats as the first one. It does culminate in something big tromping through the streets of New York. It is facing off against this big demigod.
Yeah, but
character.
I mean that's what Ghostbusters is about. Yeah. Why are you going to change something if it works? You change the gags, you change the situation, you change the characters up a little bit, you develop them further. Well, that's what a sequel is about.
And here's the wacky thing about the movie that no one wants to give it credit. There is some, actually I'd say even more character development in this, specifically with the characters that pretty much need it, specifically with Bankman and Dana. They actually do a really good job getting to their relationship a bit more in this one. Because in the first one, everything's happening that distracts from them even cultivating a relationship.
Correct.
And to the point where that final kiss during the credits in the first movie felt a touch awkward.
Yeah.
But
and you could tell that there were scenes missing from the first one. The second one had no scenes missing. Everything was there, flushed out, there for you to see.
But at least with Ghostbusters 2, it takes place 5 years later, and they get into his relationship with Dana a lot more. I actually really love the scene where, I love two scenes with Peter and Dana. First off, the one where he comes back to the apartment finding out that she cleaned.
Yeah.
I love the whole scene. I love the way it's written, and I love and it feels like they were a couple. And I love the fact, I love how he's astonished to find out that he actually has a hamper.
Yeah.
I love the fact that and I love afterwards, she's like, well, I thought your shirts are dirty. It's like, no, I have different layers of, it's not just clean and dirty. There are many subtle levels. And I'm like, God, we're all men, we do that.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the writing about these comedies is that this is like legit comedy and like stuff that happens in real life, and I'm glad that they captured it, because a lot of movies don't capture those little innuendos, those little catches of things that occur in relationships, and this really does a good job, even being a comedy about ghosts.
Yeah, and even in the second and the other scene, which was really good, was the scene when they're having dinner prior to them getting arrested. I wanted to complete that thought. But the other thing I got to make mention, and this relates to the 2016 film, my major problem with that film was that when they weren't forcing the jokes down your throat, when they just focused on being a Ghostbusters movie, that's when I really enjoyed it, because they were actually focusing on being Ghostbusters. I actually thought the plot was like out of the cartoon series practically.
Really?
But the humor was so forced, and it was so over the top. And the one thing I've always loved about Ghostbusters is that they never forced the jokes. The jokes always came organically, whether it comes from the context of the story or the characters, the way they...
Well, that's what happens when you put skilled actors and skilled comedians into a role, not like the 20...
I'm going to come to the defense of Kristen Wiig. I'm sorry. She's awesome. Paul... And I'm sorry, she was the best thing about MacGruber. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't go that far.
Timberlake was pretty good.
MacGruber was awesome. Come on.
Well,
I like MacGruber.
Okay, all right. No, the most accurate sex scene put on film, unfortunately.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. No, even porn lied. I'm sorry. MacGruber has the most accurate sex scene committed to film. Porn lied.
Yeah.
But
going back to Ghostbusters.
Love of God, let's go back to Ghostbusters. So,
what was your favorite part of the movie, honestly?
Of Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah.
First, there's a lot of things to mention, but it's hard to separate because, like I said, Ghostbusters is really kind of embedded in my DNA practically. So, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint just one thing. I guess I can kind of take myself back to that moment where I was like really excited the most. And I'd say it's when they put the proton packs back on to fight the Scoleri brothers in the courtroom. That's the overwhelming sense of joy. That's the real sense of they're back.
Yep.
For a kid, that was the best moment.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah.
I mean, for me,
that scene with the music, it worked so
the scene
well.
With the music, and it's just a fun scene. And not only that, it was the whole concept of the slime acting as a portal to unleash ghosts. I thought that was really cool. I even like the idea that the ghosts actually had something of a story when they're introduced. They're still able to fit in the fact that the slime actually seems to fine tune with the person with the aggression, and they find ghosts that seem to attach to that person's psyche. I was like, oh my God, the idea that these ghosts were manifestations of two murderers that he committed to the chair, that he convicted to the chair. I was like, oh, that's actually a cool idea. And I suppose one sadness of Ghostbusters 2 is that they didn't delve into that a bit more.
That they could have flushed that out a lot more. They could have done a lot funner things with that. Mm-hmm. They could have developed the characters even further with it by going into their personal psyches.
Yeah. I mean,
which would have been cool.
I mean, the other thing we have to observe about Ghostbusters 2. Now, one thing we can happily say about the cinematic climate right now is that we are getting really good at sequels.
Yes.
Sequels have gotten considerably better in recent memory.
But in the past, not so much.
Not that time. There was still... I mean, sequels have been around pretty much for a long time, but we have never been able to... At that time, they were still trying to find the right formula on how to pull off a good sequel.
comedy sequel.
And comedy sequel.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Because comedy sequels, there's a beautiful little quote that I love to say because it's the truth. Comedies always come out with all the best lines, and then the sequels come out with the rejected comedic sketches and lines from the first one that never made it to the first one.
Exactly. I mean,
this didn't do that.
That's why. Yeah. That's why. Honestly, if you ask me like immediately right now, I probably would have a struggle trying to reach up to 5, like of good comedy sequels.
Comedy sequels.
Right now, off the top of my head, 22 Jump Street was a great sequel. I mean, yeah, that one. Well, and the reason why is because they played up the fact of the hardship of doing a good comedy sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in order to do that, they had to go meta in order to point that out. But yeah, it is hard to do a good comedy sequel. Yeah. Now, I think the good thing about Ghostbusters 2 is the fact that they just seem to just ride the wave and just focus entirely on just telling a story.
Yeah, they did a new story.
They did.
It wasn't jokes from the first one. You could tell that they didn't just reuse jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah, they did not.
Made their own.
Yeah, they didn't rely on any kind of on any kind of repeat jokes. Repeat plot points, possibly. In fact, in order to kind of get this story, they had to kind of retcon some things. Now, the one principal rule of a sequel is you got to build on what was done in the beginning. The one thing you never do is destroy that.
Yeah.
And the one thing they do is pretty much make everyone skeptics again, and the Ghostbusters get sued, and they're pretty much back to the bottom of the barrel again.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, people are kind of like that.
A giant marshmallow man tromped through the streets of New York. Ghosts were flying around all over New York. Everyone was acknowledging ghosts were all over the place.
MCU, Destruction of New York, how many times?
Really, if you want to be technical, only once.
But after that, how do they really react to it the way that they should? Do they do that? Do they play it up the way they should? They do the same thing as Ghostbusters too. They kind of like, oh, whatever, man. We don't believe in this shit.
I'm still thinking in my head about other instances in the MCU in New York specifically where stuff. Honestly, actually, even Infinity War, you can't really count that on the same magnitude as the first Avengers. The first Avengers, no, sorry, you're wrong. Sorry, I beat you.
All right, whatever.
Yeah,
but
I mean, but it did seem a bit strange where pretty much definitive proof of the afterlife was running amok all over the streets of New York. Like
we see it every day, though. We see people talking about it and bringing up events about aliens. Let's use that as an example. Aliens are like the perfect example. How many times have we gone over? Oh, these were live events. Oh no. Right. Then something gets turned around.
Significant difference. All those instances where people claim they saw aliens are self-contained, where there's either no witnesses but the person saying it, or maybe the occasional one who just wants to be in on whatever it is that person's saying. I'm still going to say it again. Ghosts were running amok all over New York City. I'm gonna keep saying that because that's what happened. It was like pissing on an anthill. It was going. Actually, in a way, that's kind of how it happened. Peck pissed on their containment grid and unleashed at that point, and as they established, a lot of ghosts. All over the city. It's like it was shaking up a Coke bottle. It was. Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll concede that point.
It seems strange that, I mean. You could probably write off the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You could have called that like some really big, dangerous advertising campaign. As the movie very cunningly establishes that Stay Puft is a recognized brand of marshmallow.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to brush off the fact that all madness and chaos are going all over the place with ghosts. You even had the church coming in commenting on this stuff.
Okay.
And even when the church is coming around saying, yep, we were right. God's real. And the mayor just like, oh my God. I love God. I love God. Hold on a second. I got to kiss this guy's hand again. I love God.
Yeah, right.
And my mistress loves God. And my wife's mistress loves God.
What do you think of the jokes of this? How do you think they landed? How do you think they could have done better, honestly?
I mean, I can see. Well, comedy is relative. Unfortunately, that's the one truth about comedy is that you're always going to be slave to the sensibility of the viewer. I mean, we had a good talk about this with Wes Anderson on the podcast. Well, with that, it all comes down to how you feel about comedy. With me, I actually feel Ghostbusters 2 is just as quotable as the first one. I mean, if you hit me with one right now, I could probably do the entire scene where they're testing the slime.
Yeah, that is
right there. That whole scene,
my favorite scene.
It is. I will say that's probably the funniest scene when it comes to general character interaction between the four main characters. That I'd say is great.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying, that it parallels the first one. My favorite scene is when they're interacting with the thing that's going to come to life and bring everything out, and all hell breaks loose because of that.
Now, leads to the other thing. Now, one thing I still say stands out on its own terms is the main villain, Vigo the Carpathian.
Yes.
Now, the best part is he is not a repeat of Gozer, thank God.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing I find fascinating about him is that he's got his own little Renfield. He's got his little lackey. And let's face it, Peter McNichol freaking stole every scene.
Dude, I swear to God, Germa Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings is like a complete ripoff of that character. 100%. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. That's perfect.
I can only picture Grima Wormtongue going, "Why am I drippings with goo?" I mean, it would be funny hearing Peter McNichol talking like Janosch doing Wormtongue's lines. You know?
But you can see the parallel. You can see
I see the parallel.
I can imagine that he watched this and he's like, I want to do that.
I just realized I made a joke about Peter McNichol being the Renfield character, and he actually did play Renfield in Dracula Dead and Loving It, and once again stole every damn scene he was in.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Peter McNichol played Renfield in... I mean, Dracula Dead and Loving It is not Mel Brooks' best work by a long shot, but by God, all the scenes with Peter McNichol are genius. I'm good with everything else, except though there is a great scene involving a shit ton of blood, which is...
I can imagine, yeah.
Oh no, you can just watch that scene alone and you'll have your fill of the movie. That's
really
as far as like your comedic gold. But going back, Peter McNichol is Janosch. Janosch is just an incredibly memorable character and a great henchman character.
He really is.
The one thing I gotta say I did like about Vigo versus Gozer, you don't see Gozer until the dead end of it, and there's only allusions to him. They don't really start alluding to Gozer until like halfway through the film. Whereas Vigo, his presence is felt consistently throughout the film. He feels...
I mean, you see the painting from the beginning, and you're like, whoa, it's an ominous feeling when you watch that for the first time. You feel that ominous presence. He feels like
an ever-present threat all throughout the movie, and it's actually... And that lends a lot to him. And it also helps that, yes, Max von Sydow did his voice. Another actor played him, and it's kind of an unsavory history of what happened to him afterwards. But
really?
Yeah, I'll leave it to everyone to look him up on Wikipedia. He was a very prominent, I think he was Dutch or Scandinavian, one of those. Yeah, one of those. I don't know geography. I used to know geography, but he, that's a lurid story.
Huh.
This is a happy show. We're talking about Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We're talking about Ghostbusters here. I think actually another cool thing, and Bill Murray really hasn't done it since. In this one, he actually really took up the hero character a bit more in this movie. Yeah. In the final showdown, you see him actually really trying to push himself further. I like how he's trying to distract Vigo from possessing Oscar. I like the fact that it seemed kind of cool how he was really kind of trying to push himself to actually be a more heroic character. So it kind of makes me sad that Bill Murray notoriously was not on board with this movie, because he gets a lot of good stuff to do in this movie.
I think he was tired of it. It was right at the end of an era, honestly. And I think this was the end of Bill Murray's comedy, and he wanted to do something more dramatic. He wanted to evolve as an actor rather than just a comedian. And a lot of these, I mean, this is the same crew that he's been working with since what, like the 70s?
And these are his best friends, and these are people who he would continue to work with later on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I mean, and I get where he's coming from. I mean, at the time, definitely sequels are something of a minefield, and I can see why he'd be reluctant to do it. But simultaneously, though,
they did a great job with it,
especially with the benefit of hindsight. I can think of 20. Hell, I can think of 100 worse sequels than Ghostbusters 2. Frankly,
you could count more sequels that were good within a hand. I mean, like there's only like maybe 5 comedy sequels that were good And that's like stretching it.
I mean,
probably Police Academy is the first one that comes to mind.
I admit I do have kind of a soft spot for some of the later sequels, like 5 and 6. Oddly enough, are kind of guilty pleasures of mine.
Right.
5 mainly because a friend of mine's in it, but has an appearance in it.
But yeah, I mean they're great sequels, and that's same era as this.
Yeah,
it's about the same era, so
yeah.
I don't see where he could kind of like be so out of it to not want to do this, but you can't tell in his performance at all, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say he's phoning it in, but alternatively, I'm like going, no. Honestly, he still gets some of the best laughs, and he's still delivering. I think maybe they're confusing him being disinterested, Bill Murray, and being blasé Peter, because the thing is, Peter Venkman is the blasé character. He's the guy who doesn't take any of this seriously. You know, one could say it's maybe a defense mechanism, or maybe
I think it's a defense mechanism.
I think it's a defense mechanism more than anything else. And, you know, people seem to downplay Winston a lot. Matter of fact, and we'll get to it at the tail end. We'll get to the end, but I'll tell you why later on. But most people tend to devalue the fact that he actually has some of the best damn lines in the first movie, and even to an extent he has some of the best moments in the second movie, particularly the whole scene where they're underground and the railroad tracks, where poor Winston's the one who keeps getting like scared to death and he gets pulled into the slime. I was like, poor Winston, he's the punching bag character, but I love the fact that he reacts to everything the way pretty much we all would react to it. The whole bit with the ghost train is still one of my favorites.
Oh, that's phenomenal. But you always expect, especially in that scene with the ghost train, you're expecting, oh my god, he's the black guy. He's going to be the first to die. Yeah. He's going to be the first to die.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, awesome. Great delivery of a joke.
Well, here's the thing. Originally, Winston was supposed to be played by Eddie Murphy. Which meant that, and I think what it was is because he exploded around the time the first Ghostbusters came out, and obviously there was going to be I think the producers were going to demand that they write a bigger role for him.
Gotcha.
But of course, unfortunately, they couldn't fit him in with the rest of it. It would have been too many characters at the get-go. So
that would have been perfect, actually. Honestly, I think that would have.
Eddie Murphy would have been great, but honestly, it would have deprived us of the natural amazingness of Ernie Hudson. I don't know. Ernie Hudson just seems to lend something a bit more real to it, a bit less. I mean, I do love.
He's the only Ghostbuster that still goes around conventions. It's still every convention out there.
If you guys ever get to a convention that Ernie Hudson's at, meet him. He is awesome.
He's a true he loves the fans.
He still wears the jumpsuit to cons.
Yeah.
When Ray gets possessed in the tail end during the climax, I was like, that part freaked me out too.
That's
so
awesome.
It stands to reason it had the same effect on me that the first Ghostbusters had when I was a kid. So that tells me that there's still enough in this movie that makes it a worthy sequel. Not superior, just a worthy sequel.
True that.
And
I agree. I agree with you 100%. Honestly, my rating for this movie, for the first movie, I give a perfect score of 5 out of 10. 5 out of 5. And then for Ghostbusters 2, 5 out of 5, honestly.
Ghostbusters 2, for a personal level, just for me as just a fan and just what it means to me, what Ghostbusters in general means to me, I'm going to give it a perfect rating as well. Now, taking all that out of the equation, I'm still going to be lenient and give it at least a 4 out of 5.
I love the sequel. I remember as fondly as I do the first, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's why when I think of Ghostbusters, I don't think of it as a sequel. I just think of it as one movie. Because I always end up watching the second one right after the first. Always. It just, it happens that it's an extension of the first one to the extent that you can't watch the first one without watching the second one.
Yeah. You just always find yourself compelled to watch one and the other. Because here's the thing we got to remember. The first Ghostbusters was something of a freak accident. If you ever knew about the early treatments of the script, it was meant to be a bigger, more out there, more outlandish story. I don't know if you know.
No, I didn't know that.
The early treatments, the Ghostbusters were basically meant to be kind of like garbage men. Like, it was meant to be big, and they were meant to go. I mean, I definitely recommend you pick up the Blu-ray that came out. There is another modus operandi I have for bringing this up.
Yes.
For those of you in the Orlando area, we have a festival at the Orlando Shakespeare Center called the Orlando Fringe Festival. It is a festival comprised of hundreds of plays, ranging from comedy, interpretive dance, abstract, a variety. A lot of it, but basically, we have a show there, and it is called Shakespeare's Ghostbusters.
That's right.
Where it is the original movie as told by the Bard himself.
That's awesome, man.
So instead of we came, we saw, we kicked its ass, it's arrive, we did, laid eyes upon it, we have, and its ass did we kick.
I can't wait to see this,
yes.
John. I am dying to see this. I definitely want to be there for at least one of the showings, if not more. So
yeah,
I definitely
it will be
going.
Yeah, we have seven performances littered throughout. The thing to bear in mind about, have you ever been to the Fringe Festival before?
Once, but I don't remember it too well.
All right, the thing about the Fringe Festival you got to bear in mind, it's not typical theater times where all the performances are like at 8 o'clock. We're sharing venues with different plays, so they're going to be a variety of different times. Actually, we're going to have a performance at like 10:45 at night, another one at 7:30. We have one at 1:30 p.m.
Yeah.
So it's sporadic, and even then, a lot of friends are saying they want to come see just my show. I urge people to just buy a ticket for a day. Buy the ticket to the festival for a day, and don't just see my show. Actually, just go see
random shows.
Yeah, as many shows as possible, because you will find yourself to be like delightfully surprised.
How long is the runtime usually for each of the shows?
It varies. Sometimes they're about 45 minutes, sometimes to about a solid hour. Ours, I believe, runs at about, I think at a grand extent, 75 minutes.
75 minutes.
We have not gotten to the clocking portion yet because we're still working on the tech aspects.
Okay.
But if you want to find tickets for it, or even just the badge to the festival itself, go to orlandofringe.org.
Awesome. And we're going to link everything down below as well, so you could check it out with the times and everything. So please check it out. John has also his channel.
Yes, Narcotic Cassarole Productions. Recently, we did our spoiler-free of Avengers Infinity War. I'm about to put up our spoiler review. And then we're going to do, sandwiched in between Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'm doing my marvelous retrospect of... See what I did there? Where, because we've got a crap ton of Marvel movies coming out every year, I got exhausted just trying to do the... ranked worst to best, 19.
Yeah, no.
I was like, that's exhausting. Originally, I was going to do a less to more of each phase, which seemed easier. But even then, I'm still like going, I don't want to do that. So I'm just doing close examination style, where I'm just talking about each movie. Me and my cohort Sam Falco, we're talking at length about the movie itself and its history, all going all the way up to Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And of course, Man vs. Film, we're releasing the Marvel vs. DC. We post an episode and our podcast every week as well now. So we'll see you guys next week. My name is Luis.
And I'm John.